You're listening to the Arts Report on YouTube. By coincidence, the producers of Shakira's 2010 FIFA World Cup song were recording in the same building as South African band Freshlyground. That coincidence led to the song Waka Waka, This Time for Africa, credited as Shakira featuring Freshlyground. 1 billion people watched them perform at the opening of the World Cup, and the YouTube video currently has over 366 million views. Certainly, it's helped the 7-member band get noticed outside Africa for their latest album, Radio Africa. I spoke to Simon from Freshlyground, and we talked about how 7 diverse band members, some of them 20 years apart, some black, some white, how they collaborate to make their music. And we talked about whether the World Cup anthem was a blessing or a burden. And we talked about their collaboration with Janusz, a satirical news program featuring puppet versions of real-life politicians and newsmakers. It led to Freshlyground being banned from Zimbabwe. But first, I asked Simon about the diversity of his band, which the Boston Globe called, quote, a suspiciously perfect multiracial group.
Some sort of accusation there, isn't there?
Yeah, exactly.
At some stage in our careers, we sat down and plotted the perfect makeup to kind of echo a demography of South Africa, a demographic. But no, look, we've kind of come together in bits and pieces quite organically over the last 6 or 7 years. There's never really been a grand plan at any stage of the game, so. Mm-hmm. So it literally has been pretty much by luck and by meeting the right people at the right time, and yeah, it's a pretty big age spectrum. We span 20 years from the youngest to the oldest. We've got 2 girls and 5 boys. We've got a Zimbabwean, a Mozambican, and the rest are from various parts of South Africa. So it's a bit of a mixed bag, yeah, but suspiciously perfect, I'm not so sure.
Maybe not so suspicious, after all.
Yeah, no, we're an open book.
And in terms of how, with so many differences, I wonder how you make music, you know? Are there sort of natural leaders? Is there just a lot of jamming that happens, like a lot of trial and error? How do you guys make music when there's so many of you and so many different perspectives and instruments and voices?
Yeah, look, we've traditionally sat in a room together and jammed. So because there's so many of us, we sit and someone comes up with a riff, someone comes up with a melody, someone comes up with a vocal idea or a lyric, and that's jammed, and it's molded into a phrase or it's molded into a verse. And sometimes we have very strong verses and just can't find a chorus, and sometimes we have a killer chorus and just struggle to find a verse, and it's well, you know, after a few sessions jamming something, this thing needs a bridge, and sometimes we find parts from other songs or other ideas we've tried and discarded and put that in, and so there are various ways of working in a group that have served us well, but we're also, you know, some of the members of the band write their own songs. Josh writes quite a lot. Solani writes a lot of material on their own. So some of the songs are fairly complete when they come to the band project. And those are given maybe a little bit of interpretation, but still retain the integrity of the song. So we've got a bunch of different methods of songwriting.
Now, let me ask you about your sort of explosion onto the world scene, which is the World Cup song and performance in front of 1 billion people. I wonder, was that a benefit in the long run? Like, do you see that as a sort of next step in your sort of evolution as a band, or was it more sort of like a distraction, like just sort of a side thing from your music making?
Well, the whole thing came about by chance. We were in New York at the right time in a studio, and Shakira's producers in the same building. So when the whole thing, the origination of the song was fairly by chance, and the result has been, it's been a mixed bag. I think it's really served us in getting our name out and making people aware of who we are and what we do. And Solani's got a very unique voice, and I think it's a kind of voice that if you hear it once, you're going to remember it. It's going to stick in your mind. So I think that has served. It's been to our benefit. We've traditionally straddle that difficult line between world music and pop music.
Yeah.
Which has served us well in South Africa, but has been a little bit more difficult when we try and bring our sound overseas.
Why do you think that is?
Yeah.
Is it something to do with people have a hard time sort of classifying? You know, I think a lot of musicians who don't fit into a traditional genre have this kind of trouble of like, how do we at the same time promote ourselves but not sort of put ourselves in a box into one kind of genre?
Well, exactly, yeah. So that's where I think Waka Waka was a very successful kind of model at bridging the two worlds to some degree, right? There really are a lot of good African elements to it, but it's very much in a pop genre and molded in a pop format. And maybe it's a little kind of more mainstream and pop than essentially what we do. It certainly opened our eyes maybe to a way forward in terms of trying to bridge the two worlds, because we don't sit very comfortably in a very traditional world market, and we certainly don't compete in the mainstream pop arena either. So we've got to find a clever way of bridging the two.
Right. Now we are quickly running out of time, but I did want to touch on a little bit about ZA News. Do I have that right?
Janusz, yeah.
Sorry?
Janusz.
Oh, I see. And can you tell me a little bit about the collaboration that you have had and the sort of collaboration and entry into sort of satire and politics? How did that come about, and why did you do that?
Well, I'm from Zimbabwe, and we've performed up there a bunch of times. There's a great festival in Harare International Festival of the Arts, which is a remarkable festival that has managed to keep going over the last few years, and they get great acts from all over the world. And we've performed there a few times, and we've noticed we had noticed over our last few performances there just a real air of desperation and being witness to what's going on in Zimbabwe. We ultimately felt we needed to say something, so we wrote the song called Your Chicken to Change, which was directly addressed at Mugabe, but can generally be addressed at any dictator.
Right.
He's overstayed his stay in power. And then a few months after the album, I just by chance met up with Thierry, who heads up Janusz. He's and makes the puppets. And I thought, well, look, this is the perfect vehicle for us, because the song's aimed at a politician, and he'd focused on South African politics, but he'd always wanted to make a Mugabe puppet. So we kind of both of us thought, well, this is a great excuse to make a puppet and to make a music video at the same time, which subsequently got us very quickly banned from Zimbabwe.
Oh, wow.
And quite a lot of media attention. So I think it served its purpose in the sense of, well, we wanted to say something and take a stand. A lot of musicians veer away from it, and it's not an easy path to tread. You know, music and art and entertainment and politics don't mix that well. So it's with caution that we'll do it again. But it was certainly, I think, it was a worthwhile experience.
Right, but certainly caused a stir as well. Well, we have run out of time, but thanks so much for taking a few minutes to talk to us while you're on tour, and we look forward to seeing you here in Vancouver.
Excellent. Can't wait to get up and play.
Don't miss the Arts Report on CiTR Radio in Vancouver, 101.9 FM. That's Wednesdays at 5 p.m. We're also streaming online at CiTR.ca every Wednesday at 5. And don't miss our podcast, which you can find, at CiTR.ca.